Welcome aboard this salvage ship with a space now Captain Rabbit, one of the biggest nerds around. Let's end this song with laser sounds.
Greetings and salutations, what's your boggle? If you watched the last episode, you know that I had a pretty bumpy ride to the closest space station. It was just a total write-off. As you can see, I ended up trading for some new wheels. Hopefully I have better luck with this one. I will definitely be making sure that I turn on the autopilot before I bugger off to go make a stupid video about zombies. So, thanks for coming back for this installment. This will be the last one. And basically, I'll just be going through the different zombies that we've introduced so far, and just kind of compare them, their strengths, their weaknesses, and just how they stack up against each other. So, let's dig up a little bit more about zombies.
Alrighty then. Well, over the last few episodes, we have gone through the basic history of zombies, and a couple different kinds have popped up. The first one that popped up was the original one, the one that came from Haiti folklore that was usually created by an evil necromancer, witch doctor, bad magic guy. And that was the only kind that there was for quite a while until 1968 with Romero's series of Living Dead movies. And that introduced a completely different kind of zombie. Romero's zombies were a bit different from the traditional kind in that it wasn't magic that reanimated them. It hinted heavily that it was the radiation from a passing satellite that had brought in all the dead back to life. And this was anybody that just died normally, in addition to anybody that was bitten or scratched by these zombies. It was a whole new kind of zombie, and as I've said previously, it kind of gave rise to a whole new genre of horror movie. Next up was the Runner, or the Living Infected. This is a newer kind of zombie that started popping up in the 2000s with movies like 28 Days Later and, to a lesser extent, the Resident Evil series. The key difference with these zombies is that they aren't actually dead. They're just really sick people that have gone crazy and turn into reptile brain cannibal things. It was as we started to move away from the Romero era and into these modern movies that we started to get away from things like magic and radiation causing the zombies. Now it was usually a weird mutation or a virus, usually like with Resident Evil, created by an evil corporation. A fourth kind of zombie that I hadn't really mentioned yet is the weird mutant zombie. And that's usually in movies where they've taken the idea of zombie and given it a twist. These twists can take various form. In the Resident Evil series, Alice, the main character, was kind of a zombie herself. She was infected by the same virus that created the zombies, except she was basically a super person. When you look at a TV show like Z Nation, the main character, one of the characters, I suppose, had a form of zombieism that allowed him to control zombies and communicate with them. Alright, now with that little bit of review, we can go into comparing them a little bit. The Haitian zombies, the original ones, they're created by magic, and they don't really have the same limitations as the later zombies do. Usually the more current zombies, you kill them by popping them in the head, or beheading them, or killing the brain in some way. The magical zombies didn't really have that limitation, and I mean, they were just as happy being a disembodied head or pair of eyeballs as anything else. The undeath kind of permeated their whole being. This also extends to like the RPG D&D games where you're fighting against zombies there. When there's zombies and monsters in that game, they're running by the rules of that game, but generally they don't have the same hit 'em in the head vulnerability that later movie zombies do. And speaking of that weakness, that's when we come to the next big ones, the Romero zombies. Romero zombies were created by some sort of weird radiation that reactivated the reptile part of these dead bodies' brains. And any body's brains for that matter, even if you just died normally, you'd still wake up again as a zombie. These are the ones that introduced the weakness. You kill their brain, you kill the zombie. These ones in particular, I remember in the first movie, didn't really like fire either. Whereas the Haitian zombies were essentially living robots, slave labor pretty much, and could do the basic working behaviors that you needed out of forced labor. The Romero zombies had only the most basic of motor functions usually. They could swing a rock to break a window, or there was a little girl that stabbed her mom with a gardening trowel. There was little stuff like that. And then of course there was the later zombie who had very basic language skills and managed to fire a gun. But usually they were a lot dumber and not really as manually dexterous as the first ones. Next up are the runners, or the living infected, and these ones are even more dumbed down than the Romero ones. They have only the most basic of animal instincts, the need to feed. They do, however, possess the coordination required to run, and they do. That was their big thing, that, oh my god, zombies run now! The big weakness that they have going for them is most of them aren't actually dead. Some of them, like in 28 Days Later, are just sick people. Other living infected types, like in the Resident Evil series, seem to try to do their best to give it a scientific explanation for the undeath. And it's this weird mutant cell activity that basically just reanimates dead cells. I'm not entirely sure if they all have the same weakness as Romero zombies with the brain being killed, but I think for the most part that's the case. These are the ones that also give rise to the mutant type zombies. And finally, we have the living infected mutant type zombies. These ones are wild cards. Their abilities vary widely, as do their physical forms. Some of them are reduced to weird monsters like the Lickers and the other monstrosities of Resident Evil. To wrap this all up, because this video is getting way too long, I personally would have to say that the newer monster type are probably the most powerful out of any of these. It's a toss-up between those and magic, just because it's magic. It's unpredictable. You really can't set particular parameters, because there aren't any. They don't obey any natural laws. It's kind of the whole idea. The Romero type are probably the weakest and easiest to deal with and kill and outrun. And the basic living infected might have the limitation of not actually being dead, in which case they could just starve to death, meaning you might be able to just wait them out. As with anything, these are just my opinions. Everybody has one. They're just like buttholes. Some are full of shit. I hope you've enjoyed my video, and I hope you come back for my next video.